Hi you guys, it's Mrs. Day again. I am doing pizza from start to finish today. I'm starting out with my dough. So I have my nice warm water, which I've temped. And as you can see, it's not too hot. And I've got my 2 tablespoons of oil. I have my yeast, and I have my dry ingredients, which is just flour and salt. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by putting my yeast into my warm water. I'm gonna stir it in this time and let it dissolve a bit. And then my dry ingredients are gonna go into my KitchenAid mixer bowl, where I'm gonna attach my paddle attachment and mix those up very gently. My paddle attachment is, remember, much better for mixing the ingredients rather than the dough hook. And so I'm gonna mix those up, and just remember that I have 3 cups of flour in there. And then I have an additional ½ cup that's ready to go in if I need it. And as I told you earlier, I'm gonna stir up my yeast just a little bit to get that incorporated down into the water. I'm gonna try not to disrupt what the yeast is doing, by pressing it against the sides or anything, but I'm just gonna mix it in and just kind of push it down so that the yeast is in there and it has an opportunity to dissolve before I mix it in with my oil and the dry ingredients. All right, it looks like I'm all ready to go as far as the yeast dissolving, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my oil to the liquids. Even though oil and water don't mix, it's liquid and liquid, so those will have a chance to just kind of at least be in the same mixture before I put it in with the dry ingredients. And I am gonna stir it up just a little bit, just gently. Like I said, the oil is not gonna mix in with the water, it's just gonna sit on top. But that's gonna give that yeast a chance to kind of, detach and make sure it's all mixed in before I add it in. Now, I like to add my liquids while the mixer is going. And that just gives an opportunity for things to get moved around while I'm putting the liquids in. It's just less stirring. And I want to make sure I get all of that oil and water out of there. And I'm just mixing until everything is incorporated, which is only going to take a few moments before I stop the mixer and then switch to the dough hook. So you're going to see really quickly that the dough is in really good shape without adding any more flour into the bowl, because right away the dough has all clung up to the dough hook from the sides and the bottom of the bowl. And I don't know if you watched the cinnamon roll video, but you will have noticed that that didn't happen. And the reason is because we had egg and oil in there. We only have oil in this recipe, and we have a little bit more flour. So it's almost perfect right from the get-go. So I've prepped my surface to finish the dough on the counter. So if you remember from what we've done before in class and with the cinnamon rolls, I just took a damp paper towel and put it on the counter and then put a little bit of flour on there, getting it ready to go. And I don't think I'm gonna need very much flour at all. So I don't know if you've noticed that I moved a bunch of the flour over to the side because I was worried about having too much initially, all at the beginning. So I'm just going to start by kneading and seeing if I can make this just a little bit more smooth and elastic. And so I'm just gonna let it pick up the flour in that one spot, and I'm not gonna add any more unless I feel like it absolutely needs it. Right now it's not sticking to my hands and it's not sticking to the counter. So I pretty well know that it doesn't need it. It does, however, need a little bit more elasticity to it. So with these last two doughs that we've made, the cinnamon rolls and the pizza, they're not quite as elastic as the pretzel dough because they have fat. The cinnamon rolls had butter and the pizza dough has oil. So the texture is a little bit different, but we are still looking for a smooth, elastic dough that doesn't completely tear when we pull it apart. So I'm gonna knead until I feel like it's all said and done. And what you've seen is probably 2 minutes in the mixer, maybe a little bit less, and a minute or two kneading on the countertop. So I feel really good about this, and I would just invite you to notice my measuring cup that I hardly took any flour out of before, my last little kneading process on the counter. So I put a little bit of olive oil in the bowl, and I'm just gonna toss and coat all the sides of the dough in the bowl and in the olive oil. And then just like yesterday, just like the cinnamon rolls demo, just like the pretzels, I'm gonna cover this dough and I'm gonna place it in a warm spot for about an hour. So I'm just taking a peek after about 30-40 minutes, and I can see that it's risen a lot. And I'm just gonna wait a little bit longer, and meanwhile show you that I've gotten all my toppings ready. So I did ranch and pizza sauce, just pre-packaged. I didn't make those things. And I have my cheeses. I have non-dairy because you guys, most of you know that I don't do dairy. And then I have regular cheese for the kids. And then I like lots of cool toppings. I like spinach and sun-dried tomatoes and artichokes and olives and pepperoni or salami. I just think it makes things a little bit more fun. So here's all my toppings getting ready for when my pizza's done. All right, just like earlier, I'm getting a little bit of water on my countertop and a tiny dusting of flour. You wanna be really sure that you don't overdo it on the flour. You can see I barely took a pinch out of my flour canister and spread it around just to create a little bit of a canvas. My dough looks amazing. It's risen beautifully. And what I'm gonna do is take my dough out and portion it out into 2 pizzas, because you can easily get 2 good-sized pizzas out of this dough. You could do one major one with thick crust if you want to, but I really like to kind of change it up a little bit and make the crust a little bit thinner. So I'm just gonna take my bench scraper and divide it into 2 as equal as possible pieces before I start rolling this out. As you can see, we're not overly concerned with perfection here. Circle-ish is just fine. So now I'm gonna prepare my pan. As I told you guys in the cinnamon roll demo, I have these really cool silicone mats that make things so that they virtually do not stick ever. But even still, I like to think about the bottom of the pizza and what the texture is gonna be like. So I like to brush the mat with olive oil, really nice and evenly all over. And you can use spray if you want to, but olive oil is just a little bit cleaner than the pan cooking spray. And then I like to take a little bit of cornmeal. I don't know if you've ever gotten pizza out somewhere, but when you flip the crust over, it's got kind of like that, that crumbly coating on the bottom, and that's from cornmeal. So just a little dust of cornmeal on top of your olive oil will make it so that your pizza bottom has a really nice texture. All right, now it's time to think about how you would apply or assemble your toppings. So I always go with the rule of thumb that sauce, cheese, toppings, and a little bit more cheese. Obviously the sauce goes first, but it's pretty important to have a base layer of cheese down after the sauce so that your toppings have something to stick to and they don't just slide around on top of the sauce. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna do, a pretty thin layer of sauce. I don't like the sauce to be overpowering on the pizza. I like everything to be nice and proportionate and kind of even and equal. And some of you may be thinking, well, I love extra cheese or I love extra sauce, and that's totally fine. You do what works for you. But like I said, I like the crust and the sauce and the cheese and the toppings to be kind of all proportionate. So this pizza I'm making for my kids, so it's just gonna have sauce and cheese and salami and a little bit more cheese. And then after this, you're gonna put it in the oven at 425 for about 15 minutes. Give or take a couple minutes if you'd like it softer or crispier. Thanks for watching, you guys.